Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. There is a moment that might seem simple, almost too simple to be considered important. Tian Xiwei is wearing a school uniform. That's it. A blue-on-white uniform. Her hair is tied back in a ponytail. A white school bag completes her look. At first glance, this is simply part of an actress's job as she films a new drama. But then, something changed. The name Zhang Linghe started appearing again. And suddenly, the question wasn't really about the school uniform anymore. The question became, why can one look from Tian Xiwei make so many fans remember Zhang Linghe all over again? On August 18, 2026, behind-the-scenes photos from Tian Xiwei's filming for the drama Qingfeng Chui Yushang began attracting attention. In the photos, Tian appears as Lin Qing, wearing a blue and white school uniform, with her hair tied back in a white school bag that makes her look youthful, adorable, and full of energy. The visual is simple. But perhaps that's exactly why it feels so familiar. Tian Xiwei is standing there in a school uniform. And suddenly, some fans seem to be transported back to a time when the names Tian Xiwei and Zhang Linghe were constantly mentioned together. Not because Zhang Linghe was seen at the filming location. Not because there was an announcement that Zhang Linghe was involved in this drama. And not because there was any official statement connecting Tian's outfit to Zhang. No. What happened was actually much more interesting. It was fandom memory. A memory that apparently never completely disappeared. Because for many fans, seeing Tian Xiwei in a school uniform again feels like opening an old door. A door leading back to the Zhang Linghe and Tian Xiwei era. And when that door opens, Zhang Linghe's name starts appearing in conversations again. This is where the experiment becomes interesting. Imagine a fan seeing Tian's latest photo for the first time. Maybe their first thought is simply, wow! Tian Xiwei looks so cute. Then, a few seconds later, wait! Why does this remind me of Zhang Linghe? And from that one small thought, nostalgia begins to work. One photo reminds them of one scene. One scene reminds them of a drama. One drama reminds them of chemistry. And that chemistry brings back the names of two people who once made so many viewers pay attention to every glance, every expression, and even their smallest interactions. Zhang Linghe and Tian Xiwei. That's the power of fandom. Sometimes, fandom doesn't need breaking news. It doesn't need a press conference. It doesn't need an official announcement. Sometimes, all it needs is one photo, one outfit, one hairstyle, and an old memory can suddenly come alive again. But this time, there is something we need to look at carefully. Because it is very easy for fandom to turn a simple story into something much bigger than the actual facts. Tian Xiwei is indeed seen wearing a school uniform and material related to Qingfeng Chui Yushang. That's what the photos show. But there is no evidence that the uniform was given to her by Zhang Linghe. There is no evidence that Tian wore it as a secret message to Zhang. There is no evidence that this appearance has anything to do with their personal lives. And there has been no official announcement saying that Zhang Linghe is involved in this project. So, when Zhang Linghe's name comes back into the conversation, we need to separate facts from fandom feelings. The fact is that Tian Xiwei is working on a project in which her character wears a school uniform look. The fandom feeling is, this reminds us of Zhang Linghe. And that small difference is exactly what makes this experiment so interesting. Because we're not saying that Zhang Linghe is actually behind this appearance. We're asking, can the chemistry fans once felt really survive through nothing more than a visual? Can a school uniform bring back nostalgia? Or are fans simply not ready to let go of the Zhang Linghe and Tian Xiwei era? That question becomes even more interesting when we remember how their chemistry once captured so much attention. In Chinese dramas, chemistry isn't always built through dialogue alone. Sometimes, chemistry comes from a look. From the way two characters stand close to each other. From a tiny expression. From a moment that may last only a few seconds. And once viewers become emotionally attached to that chemistry, they remember it long after the drama ends. And perhaps that's exactly what is happening now. Tian Xiwei appears in a school uniform. Fans see her. Then an old memory returns. Zhang Linghe, Tian Xiwei, Zhu Yu. Their promotional moments, their interactions, and all the feelings that emerged during that era. For some people, this may simply be a coincidence. For others, the nostalgia may feel too strong to ignore. And of course, on social media, nostalgia like this can spread incredibly fast. One fan says Tian looks like she's back in her old era. Another compares her appearance with an earlier character or moment. Then another fan joins the conversation. Then come the edits. Then the comparison videos. And eventually, Zhang Linghe's name becomes part of the conversation again. Even though everything started with something incredibly simple. A school uniform. What's interesting is that Tian Xiwei herself doesn't have to say anything to make this experiment work. No statement. No hint. No secret message. She simply appears in front of the camera and lets the fandom do the rest. That's what makes fandom culture so powerful. But behind all this excitement, there is one question that might be even more emotional. Why do fans still remember Zhang Linghe so easily whenever they see Tian Xiwei? Is it because their chemistry really was that strong? Or because viewers became deeply attached to the characters they saw on screen? Or perhaps because some drama pairings never truly disappear after the story ends. They simply become memories. And every time something reminds us of that era, those feelings come back. Maybe that's why this photo of Tian Xiwei in a school uniform feels different. Not because the uniform itself is extraordinary. Not because there is anything official connecting Tian to Zhang Linghe. But because for some fans, that uniform carries a memory. A memory of Tian Xiwei as they once saw her in another story. A memory of Zhang Linghe standing beside her during the promotional journey of a drama. A memory of two actors whose chemistry became a major topic of discussion. And a memory of an era that perhaps hasn't completely ended in the hearts of their fans. Now, let's look at this experiment from another angle. Imagine if this photo of Tian Xiwei had never been connected to Zhang Linghe. Would the photo still go viral? Most likely. Yes. Tian Xiwei already has a strong visual appeal. And her school uniform look fits the character of Lin Qing extremely well. But when Zhang Linghe's name enters the conversation, the emotional level changes. Because now, it's no longer just about Tian. It's about the memory of two people. And when two names that once had such a large fandom are mentioned together again, the reaction can become much stronger. This is where the audience comments become the most interesting part. Some might say, "She looks adorable." Others might say, "This brings back the Zhang Linghe era." And some might respond, "It's just a costume. Don't overthink it." And honestly, all of those opinions are valid. Because none of us can decide what every fan is supposed to feel. What we can see is how one visual triggers a reaction. And this time, that reaction is certainly worth watching. Tian Xiwei wears a school uniform. Fans remember the past. Zhang Linghe's name comes back. And an old question comes alive again. Do you still feel their chemistry? Not. Are they secretly together? Not. Is Zhang Linghe behind this outfit? Because there is no evidence proving either of those things. The question is much simpler. Does the chemistry that once made us interested in them still feel alive? Even when only one of them appears on screen? That's the real experiment. And perhaps the answer is waiting in the comments. If you saw this photo of Tian Xiwei in the school uniform and immediately thought of Zhang Linghe, you're not alone. But if you simply see Tian Xiwei as an actress doing her job and portraying Lin Cheng, that's completely understandable too. Because perhaps that's what makes fandom so fascinating. One photo can tell two different stories. The first is the factual story. An actress is filming a new drama and wearing a costume that fits her character. Simple. Clear. Nothing more. But the second is the story that lives inside the memories of fans. An actress appears in a school uniform. And suddenly someone remembers another actor. They remember another drama. They remember another chemistry. They remember a time when those two names were almost always mentioned in the same sentence. And perhaps that's why fandom never truly forgets chemistry. Because chemistry doesn't belong only to the characters. Sometimes, chemistry becomes part of the audience's memories. So now I want to ask you. When you saw Tian Xiwei in this blue and white school uniform, what was the very first thing that came to your mind? Did you immediately think of Zhang Linghe? Did you feel nostalgic for their era? Or do you think this is simply a coincidence, and Tian Xiwei just happens to look perfect in a school uniform concept? And most importantly, do you still feel the chemistry between Zhang Linghe and Tian Xiwei the way you did before? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because perhaps your answers will determine the result of this experiment. Is one school uniform really enough to bring back an entire fandom's nostalgia? Or are we simply looking at an old memory through a different version of Tian Xiwei? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is clear. Tian Xiwei only put on a school uniform. But the fandom remembered Zhang Linghe again. And sometimes, that's how chemistry comes back to life. Not through an announcement. Not through a brand new scene. But through one photo. One glance. One hairstyle. And a memory that apparently never truly went away. If you enjoy discussions like this, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe to this channel for the latest discussions about Tian Xiwei, Zhang Linghe, Chinese dramas, and the fandom moments everyone is talking about. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, sometimes, a photo only needs a few seconds to make us remember a story that ended a long time ago. But is this really the Zhang Linghe era coming back? Or is it simply nostalgia? You decide.